my side? Great. Thank you very much. So here we go. Today, actually, we are going to discuss for the authentication and authorization in the wireless networks. It's very important, and we need to discuss three different mechanisms for the authentication and authorization and accounting as well. We call them normally in a terminology AAA. We try to understand what is the AAA. At the initial slides, we'll try to have a quick recap. Then we see that what is the AAA, authentication, authorization, and accounting for the wireless networks. And then we will see what is the difference between these mentioned AAA, and then what are the different mechanisms, procedures, or frameworks are available to help us for the AAA. And on top of that, if suppose there are the more than one mechanisms available, in that particular case, we have to understand that why those mechanisms are available and what are the differences among them, and for what scale of the wireless LAN or wireless network they are working, for what portion they are working, how they are working, what is the mechanism, how their message contains and what the steps are, and how they are providing the services to the wireless networks. So if we just go ahead with your permissions, so you can see from this particular slide that we are supposed to discuss about the 802.1x, which is the authentication framework. Keep in mind, this is not the authentication protocol. This is not the authentication algorithm. This is not the authentication or encryption technique, but this is the authentication framework. The framework is a mechanism that how it works, we will learn, and then within that, maybe we are using any kind of the algorithm or encryption approach that what we learned previously. But we will see that how 802.1x framework is working, how it facilitates to us, at what segment, at what part of the wireless network it helps us, and how this is interlinked with the EAP or with the radius, and how and why it is different on what basis from the EAP and the radius. Sorry. So today we will focus on the first 2 points to give you a right and proper understanding about the 802.1x, as well as we will discuss about the EAP-TLS, while for the radius, we will discuss it in our next class. We can finish it within the one class, but just to make sure that you are able to grab the right concepts, so we are just going to break it into the segment for your better understanding. So if we just go to the next slide, as we mentioned, The few of the
Sir,
yes, please.
you're not sharing the slides. We're looking at the lecture note folder.
You're not able? Okay.
Yeah, I can't see the slides.
1 minute. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I may stop sharing and do the sharing again. Please confirm me the moment you are able to see. Are you able to see now?
Yes, can see now. So thank you.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. So now I'm just taking it back from the slide number 1 so you can see that what we were discussing about that. And we can go for the pointer option as well. Now you can see that these are the authentication and authorization in wireless network. The 3802.1x, EAP, and the radius as well. So today we will discuss about the 802.1 and EAP TLS as well. As we discussed that, the radius we will discuss it in the next week. Now if we just go for a recap, so you can see that actually what is the wireless LAN? A quick recap for you. In this quick recap, it is not related that what is actually the wireless LAN, which is a very truly simple, but we will try to recap what is the core terminologies like we already discussed about the BSS and ESS and few more terminologies, because those terminologies we will use while we will be discussing about the EAP or radius or 802, whatever the framework or mechanism. So from here you can see that wireless local area network or the wireless LAN is a purely network which is connected wirelessly using some sort of the gateway for the internet connectivity. This is one of the definition for the wireless network. Now, when we go to the next slide, so you might notice here that there are the different color codings. So you can see that this is the stations, which is shown in a different color. And then you can see that this is the BSSR, the basic service set, which is shown in the different color. And then you can see that BSSID, it is shown in different color. And then ESS is shown in different color, which is known as the extended service set. And finally, you can see that the distribution system, which is the DS, is also highlighted into different colors. Why they are highlighted into different color? Purposely we did that, as you can, while we discuss about these things, you will be able to see from the figure which is on the right side exactly sorry, exactly that which part is known as the station and which part is actually known as the BSS and which part is actually known as ESS and which part is actually known as the distribution system. So with this color, when we go to the next, so you see that the same color code, we will just apply the circles on the same figure so you can understand that this color is representing or this circle is representing to which concept. Before that, you can see about the station. The stations are also known as node. Most of the things we already discussed in our previous classes as well. So the stations, all components that can connect into a wireless medium, that is known as a station. If we just press, so you now can see that one of the station or one of the computer or one of the node is circled with the red color. And you can see the stations is mentioned as well in the red color. So it means this is the station 1. So now you can understand from this infrastructure or this segment of the network that what is the station and what we have the meaning about the station. So we call a station, we call the node, we call the computer, we call the client. So these all are the same concept, so you may not be getting confused about that. Now what next? The next is the BSS, which is known as the basic service set. So basic service set is a set of all the stations which can communicate with each other. Okay, so every BSS has an identification ID, which is called the BSS ID. So what it means? In a simple way, we can say that the BSS is actually those stations who are connected, to make it simple, connected with a common gateway, with a common access point. Because once they are connected with a common gateway, a common gate means network, it means they are at the same level, so they can communicate with each other. And the ID for each of the node is actually known as the BSS ID. So now if we just go ahead, you can see the blue color circle. So that's why we mentioned the basic service set, BSS also in blue color if you just see with the mouse pointer. So this is also in a blue color, and that's why this is we also mentioned here in a blue color. So this is actually the BSS. And this is actually a station, and this is a station, this is a station, but we only circle to the one station, but you can understand the rest of the means nodes are also known as the station as well. Now what's the next thing? The next thing is going to be discussed about the ESS, which is the extended service set. Now you remember we discussed the extended service set. It means then when we are joining the one or more than one BSS. So when we just click, you can see that this is the BSS2, and when we click, so you can see from this green color that now this is actually known as the ESS. So when we join more than one BSS, then we can say that this is the ESS, which is known as the extended service set. And in ESS, we may have the two or more than two BSS as well. This depends on the size of the network. This depends on the nature of the network. So, but the primary concept is that the ESS is actually, that is the means more than two or more than two BSS. Now, when we are going next point, which is mentioned here in a yellow color, this is known as the distribution system, which is also called as DS. Distribution system, actually what it do, it connects the access point in the extended service set. So it means that it is going to connect this access point to another access point. So it means that this is the source which we can say that it is making enable to the ESS. So now, sorry, now we can see when we click, so we can find the gold on a yellow color circle, which is actually explaining us that which is the point which is making us enable to connect the ESS. So how this is the detail about any segment or any topology or any part of the wireless network. Now do remember these things, that what is actually the station, what is the BSS ID, what is the BSS, what is the ESS, and what is the DS, because these terminologies we will use while we will be discussing about the EAP, radius, or 802.1x, or whatever the rest of the chapter. Now going ahead, here you can see the common SSIDs for the wireless LAN. So what is trying to give you the message is trying to come up with the different companies, Cisco, Linksys, Netgear, SMS, Access Point family, and so on, going to the different companies who are producing the hardware, and they have their gateways, and these are the default names for them. But we can change them. SSIDs can be changed, that can be updated later on. That's not an issue. Now going ahead, this is also a recap. You remember we discussed in the DHCP server how it is connecting. You remember in our last lab we did the testing using the Wireshark and the other tools that how this mechanism is going to be happen, then when any of the node is going to active and how it is going to be connect, what are the procedures and what are the methods. So this is the same kind of the recap for you. It's saying that the station connecting to a wireless LAN. So he is referring now here from this station, which could be computer, which could be tablet, which could be your laptop, which could be your cell phone or whatever it is. So what he is suggesting that these are the different steps, are different procedure where these steps are required to be followed when any of the node or station is going to connect for the internet. So you can see from here, there's the 4 steps. Number 1 is scanning. Number 2 is association. Number 3 is IP address allocation. And number 4 is authentication. So after this 4 steps, now only our node, our computer, or whatever the device or whatever the gadget we are trying to connect, that will be enabled to send and receive the data. So just going to brief you quickly again. That when a station firstly moves into the coverage area, it means the time while we are not in a coverage area, or we are in coverage area, but say for example our Wi-Fi is switched off. So it means that our set is not in coverage area. The moment we switch on, then it means that now we are in the coverage area. So the wireless LAN, the following procedure take place. For the procedure, number 1 is the scanning. The station searches for a suitable channel. So who will do? Our station, our own machine. The moment we switch on the Wi-Fi, it will searches that which are the SSIDs are available within that particular range. So after finding them, so what it will do, it will try to communicate with them, with those SSIDs. Say for example, we switch on our Wi-Fi device, it found that within that particular area, that region, there are the 9 or 10 other access points are available, their coverage is available. So what he will do, he will try to send the broadcast messages, what you remember we discussed previously in our theory class during the DHCP and also in our last lab. So they will try to send, sorry, sorry for that. Then he will try to broadcast the messages, okay, to all of the SSIDs. And then you know that all of the SSIDs, they will try to send them a response. That you remember we were saying that the probe response and probe request like that. So the probe request will go and probe response will come. Now, based on that, once everything is going to be fine and agreed and accepted or selected by the client or by the node or by the station, then what happened after that? The next step here, it will be the association. So the station will associate with the access point. When the station decided that I will go with A or B, then association mechanism will be started. So association mechanism, after having the association mechanism, what happened? Now the IP address allocation is started. So it means the association, it means that now they are agreed and your station said, I accept Mr. A to you, while he will send the reject response for all of the 10 other access points. Now, after this association, when it is the mutual agreement are done, initial agreement are done, then IP address allocation will be done. And you know that we discussed that this IP address will be done using the DHCP based on the available IP address from the pool. And also the moment when the IP address will be assigned by the access point to a station, so it will do the whole process, but beside of that, it will also assign that particular IP on a lease for some particular time. That time could be a random time, maybe in minutes, maybe in hours, maybe in days, maybe in weeks. And we can also fix that particular time as well. That we already discussed in our previous classes as well. So once the IP address is given to that particular, because after having the IP address, now they will be formally able to communicate with each other. So once the IP address is there, after that, what happened? Now the authentication mechanism is starting. And now it will going to complete this procedure of the authentication, and only if suppose the authentication mechanism is going to be successful, only after that the station will be able to send and receive the data. Now this authentication mechanism could be means open access, could be shared mechanism, could be means not a shared mechanism, but maybe any other. So now how these mechanisms are going to be happen, what frameworks are there, at what stages those frameworks are there, and how they support us, that is our target. That is what those frameworks and those mechanisms like 802.1x, like suppose EAP, like suppose Radius. So now you understand it why we are discussing this and why we are having this recap, because this is the phenomena. While we reach from here, now we require those things or those frameworks or those mechanisms which can make enable to make surety about the AAA. The AAA is the authentication, authorization, and accounting. So you know the authentication is actually trying to verify the person who is trying to connect, that is the real person. Authorization is actually when we give the connection, when we means authentication mechanism is done, user is verified, you get connected. After that, the second A, which is the authorization, is known, that will be in action. That authorization is actually how and what type of privileges you have. So based on the user policy, so the means you will be granted those particular access privileges. That is the after the authentication, that is known authorization. So who will be doing this for us? Again, this all is with the help of these frameworks or mechanisms. Which are they? Like 802, like EAP, like Radius. So now you understand it what these things are. They are not any means authentication protocols. They are not any specific authentication algorithms, but they are the frameworks or mechanism which help us now for the AAA functionality. So I hope that now the first and the most important point that you got to understand the linkage about this with that. So don't you confuse yourself that what is the WEP, WPA2, WPA3, and whatever the other things. So they are there. Then we didn't discuss about these things. Now why we are discussing about these things? Okay, going ahead. So when we go to the next, so now here you can see the AAA, that what we were discussing about the authentication, authorization, and accounting. So in this, you can find the details that what is the difference among them. So in difference among them is the AAA, A is authentication, A is authorization, and the third A is about accounting. So you are very much means well known, we just discussed now. Authentication is where we are trying to verify that the right user is there to get him means connected or allow him to log in or give him the second phase, second A authorization. So once the user is connected, then we means give that particular user the authorization. And authorization is what? That is the second A. Second A is what? That we will give the privileges as per the user have the privileges. Who will do this for us? Okay, so that's what we are discussing today. And the next is the third A is accounting. Accounting is actually, this is normally used for the billing purpose, but what it is actually we are checking the quota of the user, how much it is using. Like you have the internet connectivity, you are going to connect, you are buying some package. Okay, so after buying, you need the first day where you will be having your login ID and password so you can authenticate yourself. Now it will give you authorization that, say for example, you purchase the 5 MB speed, 5 MB space only. So you will be authorized only for that particular 5 MB. Now, what is the AAA? The second, the third A, that is accounting. That will be knowing, counting that how much data you already means used and how much data is left. So this is how this AAA concept is there. So AAA is the means architecture. This is an architecture available to all security devices. So now you understand that why this is available to all security devices, because this is the architecture, a mechanism which we require, which we need for all of the devices. To authenticate the users, okay, for sure, this is the number 1A. Users accessing the device are the nearby network. It is the process of identifying a user, determining the permissions, which is the A second. Permission granted to the user, and keeping a record of the user's activity, which is means that how much it is used, data, and blah, 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 blah. This is the third A. So now I hope that it is pretty clear to you. So the AAA process aim to control over the network connection. So this is the way we can control over the network connection. Like suppose we can control authentication, we can control authorization, and also we can control the accounting. So in another way, we can handle a users from A to Z. For controlling its authentication, that is it a valid user or not, and controlling its privileges, and how many privileges it is given, and then finally we are controlling it is the quota as well, that how much it is means allotted, or how many data it is supposed to used. So in this particular field. Now going ahead, AAA again, going ahead now, these all are the details given further. That's what we already discussed. So just for you, we just can go to read and just try to find out that what is the new information within this. So you can see that this is the authentication A1, authorization A2, and this is the accounting A3. So authentication, this is the confirmation that a user who is requesting a service is a valid user. So in authentication, we just verify the user who is using or requesting the access, that is the right user to us. Okay, so once it's accomplished, then it will be means its credentials will be with us, and we will allow the connectivity to the users. So now example for this one, what credentials include, like suppose the passwords, one-time token, digital certificate, phone number, could be any. This could be any, because it depended how the user is registered with us. Now authorization is the getting granting, sorry, not a getting, but granting of a specific type of the services, means the privileges, okay, including no service. Maybe you go through with 1A, you pass 1A, but maybe you are not able to go for the second and third A. Say for example, you purchase a package or plan for 5G, and that packaging plan is for, say for example, for 1 month. You can use within 1 month, and you already used and finish it in 1 week. Now if you want to connect, you can connect, but you will not be able to browse for more because you already finished your data. So now your privileges, the second A is gone. It will be controlled. The user will be controlled. User will not be having now this means capability. And the same way, the billing is stopped because billing is already done. So now that's what he means, that we are giving them the privileges. So either what privileges are, like suppose what we talk about the example of the internet package. So how and what, access and number, maybe no, the no, like what the example we just discussed now. So could be any. This depends situation to situation to the users based on their authentication, and these all privileges will be based on user authentication. Who is the user, and then that particular user, what kind of the services or what kind of the privileges particularly that user have. Now we may be based on the restrictions, for example, time of day restriction or physical location restriction. That's what we just discussed right now. So these all are the privileges which are being handled by the second A. And this can be means, for example, it can include the IP addresses access, data access, filtering address, assignment, route access, routing data, routing assignment, encryption, QoS. So it is dependent that what type of the user is and what type of the service that particular user is allowed and what type of the services particular user is not allowed. Then the third, which is the A3, is actually about the accounting, as we just already discussed. So normally, mostly we use this one actually for the management purpose, for the planning and billing as well. So we can see this is actually we are trying to tracking the consumptions of the network resources and the user's typical information that it is gathered in the accounting. So this is how this AAA is working. And there are the frameworks which are supporting us to implementing this. Those frameworks are actually 802.1x, are those authentication mechanisms are like suppose EAP, and also we call as the Radius one. So Radius is actually, we will discuss in the next week, but Radius is actually for mostly for the remote access. So it goes for the bigger and higher segments of the internet. While for the A02 and the EAP, it is for the not for the remote but within. So we will discuss these things so you can understand what is the difference among them as well. So going ahead to the next slide. So here it is trying to show you the pictorial presentation for your better understanding about the AAA. So you can see from here that in the AAA, number 1A is the authentication. So if you have a credit card, if you are authorized, then you will be only get access to the particular card. I cannot use your card. Anybody else cannot use your card. It means you are the one who have the authentication, who have the first A qualified. After that, you will be able to go for the authorization. Now, what is the authorization mechanism here? The authorization mechanism here, it means that you got login, but now you can only use your credit card limit. Say, for example, you have the credit card limit for the 10,000. So you will only be able to use that your limit. You cannot go beyond your limit. You cannot say that I have the, say, for example, 10,000 and I want to use the 2 million means more than that amount. No, cannot. That is actually authorization, means how much privileges you have and where you can use your card. This depends on the card. It depends on your user. Say, for example, at what outlets you can use, in what countries you can use, at what areas or regions, remote locations you can use. So this all comes under the authorization. And the accounting is your billing. So you can see from here that we are now noticing that suppose you have the limit which is for the 10,000. So how much you already use and how much is billing is to you. So this is how the AAA is working. I hope that now you will be pretty clear about the AAA, that what we try to discuss from the different angles. So once you are clear with this one, that we are able to go to the next slide, and now we are ready to see that how these things are working like 802, and now we are ready to move to the next phase. Now in this slide, you can see that it is saying the authentication and authorization in wireless LANs. Now we are coming back to our original the real topic. So it means that we have a now good background. So now we are in a position so we can understand that what we are supposed to discuss and what we are supposed to do right now. So here you can see that the authentication is a process of verifying credentials of the client desiring to join the wireless LAN. Very simple, we already discussed. So here you can find 802 specific two modes of authentication. 802.11 it is using the two mode of authentication. One is the OSA, which is the open system authentication. You remember open system authentication? Okay. The second mode is the shared key authentication. So you will see that what is the difference between them. It's open, it is accessible for all. This is not open. So it will be following only the difference, few of the steps of the difference, while the device are getting is going to be connect for the same DHCP steps that what we just discussed a couple of minutes before. So association is a process of associating a client with a given access point. So now what it is, now he is taking us towards the 802, but he is saying that the 802 framework is actually having the two modes. One is the open access and other one is the shared key mechanism or shared key authentication mechanism. So it means that the 802 is providing us support for both of the mechanisms. Okay, no problem. Go ahead. Understand what is the open access. So you can see from here that in this is the access point, because access point broadcast to the node, and once the SSIDs matches, it requests for the authentication and it responds for the authentication, but there is no authentication mechanism is performed here. Why? Because this is the open access. So it's open, public, no authentication, but it will just go, it requests for authentication, and when it finds there is nothing, no mechanism, then what happens? It just goes, and this probes response packet that contain some of the information such as the SSID, which is used to determine the access point associated with that. So now you know about the probe response and probe request, and it means the broadcast and everything, because we already discussed in previous classes, and also we discussed in our last lab as well. So this is the one of the mechanism, which is the open system authentication mechanism. That is also supported by the 802 point blah blah or X. When we say X, so it means it could be 1 1 or 2 or something, means with the different numbers. So we can just call here 802, not to confuse you, means yourself. So 802, it supports the open system authentication mechanism, as well as it supports to the shared key mechanism. So now you can see from here that in the open, it was only goes to the 3 steps and it was done. Now here you can find out that the 5 steps are. Why the 5 means 5 keys are required, 5 steps are required, because of the shared key authentication. So previously it was the open key authentication mechanism. So in this, the first step is the same. You can see from here the broadcast message. It is here is the broadcast message from the access point. Then we reach here. The second step is also means same, SSID matches, and then what happened? It means request for the authentication request. If we just go back, you can find out here. But because there was no authentication here, so it just responds the authentication and got connected. But got to, not connected, but got to the next phase or whatever you see, according to the steps what we discussed. But now here, when it happened, so now this last stage, which is the authentication decision here, and here you can see that this is the authentication response. So because there is no authentication applied, then he will only receive the response, so he will be connected. But when the authentication is there, so you can find it here that now here is the authentication decision. Either he will be, the node will be granted the access, or either the node will not be able to grant the access. Depend on the authentication mechanism, or depend on the authentication that user is providing. So sometimes when we are trying to connect with the means access point or network, and we are not able to connect because maybe we are providing the wrong password. So if we are providing a wrong password, we will not connect. If we provide correct password, then we will be able to connect. That is the known as the authentication decision. And who will be taking this authentication decision? The access point is the one who will be taking the authentication decision, because provided that rather we provide the right password or not. Now, who is doing this for us? This is the first A, and then we will go for the second A, then we will go for the third A. Say, for example, at this stage, we are discussing 802. 802 framework is doing for us. This is the something who is helping us. So now you can see here the in between 2 more steps, because the authentication mechanism is here. So that's why the encrypted text and encrypted text is also involved. While for the open access, it was nothing was involved there. So this is the difference between the means open and the shared key authentication. Now going ahead, now you understand its background. Now you understand everything. Now is jumping us, taking us directly to 802.1x. So it means 802.1x, maybe 1112 or whatever it is. So what you can call X, or even if suppose you just call 802, it is good. IEEE always, because these all of the standards from IEEE. So now you just see this is the IEEE 802. We are not saying even this one. 802 is the standard framework. This is a framework. This is not a protocol. This is not an authentication scheme. Okay, this is not a WPA. This is not a WPA2. This is not a WEP. This is not any encryption, but this is the framework which help us for MMM mechanism. And within this 802, maybe we will be using any kind of encryption. Maybe we are using open, maybe we are using shared, maybe we are using WPA, maybe we are using WPA2, maybe we are using WEP, or maybe we are using anything. But this itself, don't confuse yourself that this is not the authentication protocol or something, but this is the mechanism. This is the framework which makes us enable to means do all the things. What all things? To manage AAA. And now you are very pretty clear what is the AAA. So it is defined by the Institute of the Electrical and Electronics Engineers, which is IEEE, very well known by everyone. And it works where? It works at the media level layer 2 access control, because that is the one where we are trying to get the hardware based access. We are trying to get the access to the access point, and it is working at the layer 2. So what? Offering the capability to permit or deny the network connectivity. So this is the one who will allow or disallow the network connectivity. If it is the authentication mechanism, shared key or anything, so it will means try to see that number A, first A, if authentication is correct, it will allow or disallow. So that is the first step. If we are disallow, then means the rest of the A's are gone. So based on what it means taking a decision, it is the identity of the end user or device. So depend on the device is registered or not, depend on the user is registered or not. So it is working on the layer 2. So it is giving us the access. So this is the framework. Now it is approved when? In 14 June, by chance the same month we are in, June 14, 2001, almost 19 years back. And by whom? By the American National Standards, ANSI. So these are the only bodies. So just only this is for your brainstorming, for your knowledge, nothing else. Now 802 standard was designed for what? For the port-based authentication of all IEEE 802 networks. What it mean? It means that if suppose our authentication is failed, and it will not open the port for us to be part of that particular network. Why it's a port? Because it is working on layer 2. What is the layer 2 in OSI reference model? You are very much well aware about that. So now you can see that how things are interlinked with each other. This means it will work across for Ethernet, for FDDI, for token ring, for wireless, and many other networks as well. So it means what? It means that it will not only work for the wireless, but it will work for the other type of networks as well, because it is working at the layer 2. That's why this is the most common among for all other networks as well. By authenticating the user's access at the network edge, because this is the network edge, this is the point where we are giving them the connectivity or not. This is the point where we are allowing them the port or not. If not, then even nobody is a part of our network. So then the things are gone. So that's why what we are saying, authenticating the users at the network edge. Network administrators can be assured that no unauthorized access. So this framework is making sure, helping us to the network administrator that no unauthorized user is connected. So this is helping to boost or enhance or control or manage or monitor the security of our network, the privacy of the network. So I hope you understand and how this 802 is important, where it's working, how it's working, and how it is handling to the AAA. Now, this will take place, the user authentication can take place on a centralized authentication server. How this is going to happen? It can be at the centralized authentication server. Like suppose you are using the authentication mechanism, for sure all of the details and passwords and these things are previously stored at the centralized server. So the moment we are providing the credentials, when we say the credentials, so it means the ID and password. So when we are providing the credentials for login as a user, so those credentials goes to that particular server, but that particular database, and going to compare, and based on a successful comparison, it will got a green signal and it accepted. Otherwise, it may not and we receive the denial. Now, how this is happening, you can see from this figure. This is even simple and easy for you. So now you can see from here that this is the AAA. This is the, we can call the server authorization. Central server, that's what he is discussing. Okay, and these all are your stations, are your nodes, are your computers, are your gadgets, are your laptops, or whatever you want to say, you can. Okay, and and this is the 802, means whatever the standards we are applying here, we can apply on the wireless, we can apply on the wire, we can apply on the Ethernet, we can apply the different networks. You remember we said that it is working for, means different. Here you can see that we said that it's working for the different, that's why it is mentioning for the different. So the moment they got access from here, then only your request can go here and it can start it. So this is actually the port, this is known as the port-based network access control. So you know now why we are calling this as a port-based access. Because if we are done with the authentication with the first A, then only the port will be allowed to us. Otherwise, the port will not be. And you know what I mean by the port. Because whenever we communicate, we only communicate using the port with the other machine. Otherwise, the port is the gateway to be in for any other machine. Otherwise, it's not possible. We cannot. Okay. Now, going ahead, so we can see the next. The next is actually 802. Now he's trying to go inside the detail about 802. So he's saying that 802 has no type of encryption or cipher. Repeating again and again, it does not have no encryption and no cipher itself by the 802. It's a framework. In this inside, we can use WEP, TKIP, AES, WPA2, or whatever the other existing algorithms. Repeating again and again so you can understand the difference between this and that. So no type of the encryption or cipher is there. All the encryption takes place outside the 802 standard. So everything takes place outside. Once it's done, then it can help us the procedure and phenomenon what we discussed. Now, EAP, which is also known as the Extensible Authentication Protocol, EAP would use one of its various methods for the encryption. EAP also can use one of its the various means of authentication mechanism, open or shared one. After the user authenticates to the wireless network, then they may start conversations using WEP. That's what I'm telling you, TKIP, AES, or anyone else, and then start communication. So don't confuse this one. This is the framework, and now I hope that you understand the core concept that what we were trying to discuss about that. Now, how it is working? Here you can see. Now we are calling this as a supplicant. In network and in any other technology, most of the time they use the buzzwords and the different keywords. They have some solid meanings, but those you may not get confused or you may not be so much impressed on that one. So you need to understand the basic, the core concept, so it will be easy for you that you can go beyond that and you can understand. So the supplicant is the same like a node, like a client, like what we are saying today, like your machine. Okay, who is requester? So that is also known in 802 terminology. We call it supplicant, and this is the authentication server, and this is the authenticator. So how it is going? So you can see from here, either we are using the EAP or either we are using the 802. So then we are going to the authenticator, and then you can see the radius is here. So what the radius is doing? Today we are not talking about the radius, so don't confuse yourself. Just try to get the core concepts about the EAP and 802. In the next class, we will discuss about radius in a very detail, and then you will be able to understand the difference for that one. And this is the authentication server. So how this is happening? This is how we'll discuss further in details now. Now just go back. So see here the supplicant. So I just told you the supplicant is the client, is the node. So you can see from here, now in 802, now he started himself saying 802 framework. So make sure that what we were discussing previously. Okay, now this framework has three things. Number one, supplicant. Number two, authenticator. Number three, authentication server. Go back. This is number one, supplicant. This is number 2, authenticator. This is number 3, authentication server. So now he is telling us what is this, what is this, what is this. And he will focus, and we will focus actually on this particular part. But we will not focus on this particular part for today, but in the next lecture. So now, what is a supplicant? Refer everything to this previous figure. Number 1, supplicant is what? This is a wireless client device wishing to connect. Means your device, your laptop, your tablet, your computer, whatever the device who is wishing to connect. That is known as a supplicant to the 802 network, which is the wireless LAN, possibly a standalone device or an end user such as a computer, a laptop, a PD, and blah, 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 blah. So that's very simple. And we are pretty clear about that. Now, what is the authenticator? Okay, the authenticator is a device to which supplicant directly connect. So to whom you are trying to directly connect? If suppose you have a cell phone, if you have a laptop, or we are trying to directly connect with what? With the access point. That is our first point of connection. So see what he is saying, that which supplicant obtain network access permissions. Access point is the one which is the primary source, is the first source which can grant us or get for us the connectivity permissions. For example, a wireless access point. So now you notice that we reach here. For example, a wireless access point, a switch. Switch, it means if suppose we are not using wireless connection, and then we are connected with the wire network. So you remember this 802 is working for means all type of the network. So not to be confused with these things. So now the authenticator have the maintained 2 virtual ports. It has 2 virtual ports. What are those? Uncontrolled port and controlled port. Uncontrolled ports actually allows what? EAP authentication traffic to pass through. Now see, and now he is trying to link the EAP as well with this one. Okay, so this is a framework. It has a capability. It can use the EAP services as well. So they can integrate themselves. And also in radius, you can see that they can. And that's why if we just go back, so here you can see that either EAP or either 802, or we can use them together. So now what do you mean? EAP authentication traffic to pass through. The control port blocks all other traffic until the supplicant has been authenticated. You understand what it means by these two? So these two is actually, now one, you remember we call this one is the open authentication mechanism and shared authentication mechanism. So in this, while it is connected, after that we can open and go. So this means that is the authentication is required. So this is how this is authenticator is helping us. Now make it simple for your pattern understanding. Supplicant means your device, your cell phone. Authenticator means first and device to whom you access. That is your access point. Let's make it simple, very simple. No need to go to the means very conventional or conversational means terminologies. We have to go, but we have to come up with the real life examples as well, so as we can understand simply that what these things are. Then now the authentication server. So authentication server, it means now it is talking about this one. This is the one who will give us the access, finally access. So the authenticators act as a gateway to the authentication server. So now what do you mean? That this is actually acting, number 2 is acting as a gateway to the authentication server. Now a very important point here. You remember in access point, normally we call that access point as a gateway. You remember we give that name as a gateway as well. Why we are calling the gateway? So this is the answer. You got the answer today why we are calling that a gateway. Okay, and why we are calling that as an access point? Access point because that is the first device to whom we can access. And why we are calling a gateway? Because that is actually acting for us as a gateway to send a request to means through to the authentication server and get the authentication from us. So for each name, whatever we are using in the terminology, they all of them, they have a very strong means background and knowledge for that. So now I hope you understand from this one and also from this point that why this is and why this is, why the control and why the uncontrolled. and why this is authentication server, and why we are calling the means access point, and also we are calling the gateway. So this is the reason that why we are calling them. Okay, provide the access granting and access rejecting the features which is responsible for actually authentications on this application. So this will provide us access or restrict from the access, or provide access with what privileges are and from what it will restrict us based on the supplicant. Based on supplicant means based on the device and based on the user. So you remember we quoted the example about the internet access for 5G package. So you just fit that example 100%. That is what we already discussed. So this is the back end. This is happening at the back end. Just go back so you can see this is happening. Okay. We cannot see, the user cannot see. Backend is as per the standard RAN software, and that is supported by whom? The Radius. Radius is stand for what? Remote authentication dial-in user service. So you can see from here, until this, you can see that this is your supplicant, this is your network. These all things are within your network, but this thing is remotely. And for this to connect, so today, for the radius, you may just know this much, and then later we see that how this is working, what are the message size, and how it's sending the further detailed description about radius in the next lecture. Now this radius is actually stand for the remote authentication dial-in. So from this figure, even you can understand that where we are using remote, and you can understand the point. Can we use the radius only without the EAP or 802 or not? So keep this thing in mind, and you will get the answer in the next class as well. Okay. So now we're just going ahead. Here we can see now further that 802X. Now many parts of the 802 works are within other standards such as EAP and radius. Now you already know that this framework is also supporting to EAP and radius. It is working, many of the major parts they are working together with that, depend on the sort of the network. So 802 standard is just a mechanism, again repeating, it's just a mechanism, it's just a framework that denies all traffic except EAP packet from accessible network, and it supports to the EAP. Okay, once the EAP says it's okay, what it means, why it's support to the EAP? It means that in case of suppose the EAP is saying okay, it is everything fine, giving green signal for the device to access the network, then 802 protocols tells the switch or the access point to allow the user traffic. So what it means in a simple words, if EAP gives a green signal, okay, everything is fine, then what happens? 802 will means tell to the access point and tell to the switch and tell to the network that okay, it's okay, green signal, just go for it. This is accomplished by having the network port. So again, he's saying network port. So you remember we discussed that this is working on layer 2. So we have to know, we have to get access or not using the port. That's why it is mentioning the port. Or in a wireless situation, each client connection is one of the 2 port states. What are the 2 port states? These are the 2 port states: uncontrolled and open access or shared authentication mechanism. These states are controlled and uncontrolled. So you see it already mentioned here. So you already know that what is the uncontrolled, which means open access, and control, which means that we have the any kind of the authentication mechanism. That's what we discuss here. So it's very simple and it's very pretty clear, but it's very important as well. Now going ahead, now we are reaching to the EAP. EAP we will discuss this today, and then the next we will discuss about the radius. We will discuss in the next class. Now EAP is actually stand for the extensible authentication. We have to see what is the extensible authentication protocol. So in this you can see that EAP is the extensible authentication protocol. Now it would become easy because now you understand the background, framework, and everything. Most of the things we already discussed. So EAP is the standard what? Method For doing what? For performing authentications to gain the access to the network. So EAP is the one who performs action to give or grant the access. Once the EAP gives the green signals, then 802 will suggest or recommend to the network, okay, go ahead, just give the connection. By carrying the arbitrary authentication information. What do you mean by the arbitrary? It means whatever the user is inputting the values based on the input authentication information. Many different authentication protocols can be used to provide many authentication. These are common. EAP can support to 802 mechanisms, radius mechanism, or etc. Any other mechanism can. It's open. It's vast. That's why you remember in the 802 we said that once the EAP give a green signal, it goes ahead. So for radius also, if EAP gives the green signal, it goes ahead. So it supports for the different one. New authentication protocol can be easily added as well, and it is not restricted. Even whatever the new protocol means we are going to design in the network, that will also, EAP will also have a support for that. So in other words, we can say the EAP is the most common which providing the support for all of the protocols, and it can work with all of the protocols. Now, just again, still we already discussed in a very great detail, but we are just trying to discuss a few other points just for your brainstorming. So you can see the icon right side and brainstorming. This is just only when we say the brainstorming, it means just to give you a closely related background information so you can understand the upcoming rest of the slides. So now you see here an overview, EAP overview. It is originally built for the type which is the PPP. PPP is actually point-to-point protocol when the two devices are connected with each other, and extends the PP chapter authentication method. How? It has a built-in authentication protocol. So EAP has a built-in PPP authentication mechanism, point-to-point protocol actually. Now PPP or point-to-point protocol data link configure is done using by the LCP. LCP is what? Link configuration protocol. Now, not to be worried that you are not required to memorize these things. Huh? This is just only for your brainstorming. Say, for example, if we discuss during its data packet of the EAP, then we use any terminology, so you may not get confused. So just going to give you the overview. Okay, so you know that what is the LCP and what is the NCP and what is the SNP and what is the PPP, like that. So just only for that. That's why it is mentioned here that this is only the for your brainstorming. Okay, PP data link configuration is done using the LCP, which is the link configuration protocol. Now the LCP also configure the optional authentication mechanism. So EAP is by default configured for PPP, point-to-point protocol, and PPP is configuration is done using the LCP, which is the link configuration protocol. And the LCP is also configured optional authentication mechanism. Optional means it is something which is not necessary. After the LCP configured, the line authentication takes place and the network protocols are configured by the NCP, which is the network configuration protocol. Not to be worried, and no need to memorize anything. As I mentioned, this and few more slides just only for your brainstorming. Then when we are using the terminology, so you may not get confused with what these things are. So PPP authentication or point-to-point authentication, which is built in EAP, is what is authentication set by the LCP before authentication begins. So we just discussed in the previous slide that it is done by the LCP. And what is the LCP? So now you know about that. All of the authentication protocol used must be determined at this stage. So it means at this stage, they have to know what type of algorithm they are going to use. NAS, or network access server, must know the protocol used for the authentication protocol. What protocol we are using? We're going to use WAP, PPP, WPA2, or whatever it is. So we have to identify at this stage. Now, what are the basic assumptions for EAP? The basic assumption for EAP is the EAP works over secure line. This is the basic assumption. Now, you need to understand what is a secure line. Secure line is not some technical terminology or technical definition. Okay, it's only a logical concept. You can see in the upcoming next slides what it is. A client may not support all authentication methods, so EAP must support authentication method negotiation. So these are the basic assumptions on what, on basis on that EAP is working. To allow the expandability, a NAS should be able to function without knowing all EAP authentication methods. And the physical layer under the link layer may not be reliable. Physical layer means the first layer under the layer 2. So we already discussed that it's working under the at the layer 2. Now, what is the secure line? As we discussed, in this case, secure line is not a strictly technical term, but a secure line is a line where probability of a third party listening to the line or injecting or modifying existing, means the different type of the attacks, are very low enough. Why they are low enough? Because they are at the layer 2. Remember TCP and these things, they are working at layer 4. So this is working at layer 2. So that's why at very low chances are there. It's working at the lower level at the ports. So that's why low enough. That's why we are just saying that this is our assumption that it will work on the secure line. So secure line is not a something technical term or something important. So you may not get confused with this one. Okay, what exactly is low enough is dependent on the link we are using. So this also varies. What type of link we are using, what type of network we are using, what situation we are using. So it depends on that how much it is the secure line. So security are the means secure line performance are it means it will also varies, it also ranges. Now what happens? The EAP protocol. Now coming up to the EAP protocol. The EAP protocol is a one-sided authentication protocol. Why is a one-sided protocol? Because it works for, you remember we said that it works for PPP. PPP means point-to-point protocol. Means this is the computer A and this is the computer B. You know the point-to-point network. So this is point-to-point network, means these computers are connected. But this EAP works between them, but this EAP works for how? For both way, for this way and also for this way, because this is connecting for both. So the peer must identify himself to authenticator. What do you mean by the peer? When we are connecting, when we are talking about peer-to-peer network, point-to-point is normally used in peer-to-peer network. In this, there is no server, this type of network, and there is no client. They both have the same level of capabilities. If this is server, this is also server. If this is a client, this is also client. We cannot apply the administrative policies on that. So that's why we call peer level, means they both are at the same level. So the peer must identify himself as the authenticator. So in this, the peer itself must identify that I'm the authenticator. The second peer will also identify that I'm the authenticator. Why they are doing like this? Because they are working at the same level. Why? Because of the peer-to-peer network. What? Because of the PPP. What PPP? Because this is using EAP is default protocol is working for the PPP. Now EAP allows for the mutual authentication by running protocol in both directions. What do you mean by the mutual? It means for both directions, for here and here, for both ways, because they are using at the same level. Now how this protocol is working, how many steps and how the message, and you remember we discussed about handshake like that. So in this protocol in EAP, there are the 4 steps total. The 4 steps including are, number 1 is EAP request, number 2 is EAP response, number 3 is EAP success, number 4 is EAP failure. Number 1 EAP will request, number 2 EAP will have a response, and number 3 will EAP success, and number 4 is EAP failure. Now, after these 4 means message steps, the EAP 3 and 4, these messages contain nothing, no information, because this is only a signal, either successful, connected, either failure. But the first 2 parts, EAP request and EAP response, they contain the information. they contain all the information about the data, about the header, other things. It is sending the information, and then it is, it's receiving the response. After that, based on that response, either we will receive the number 3 or number 4. How? We will see here. From here, you can see that this is the structure, message structure for EAP messages. So all EAP messages have a common format. So not to be worried. So what it is? Code, identifier. This is all is contained the 1 byte representing the type of EAP message. Okay, the type of, it means it is which type? It is request or it's response. So now you can see from here the data, any size, the message data varies. Any size, when we say any size, it means data varies. Identifier, this is 1 byte, used for what? For matching the request and response. Okay, this would be matching the request and the response, so going to the right direction and coming with the response. Now the length is what? 2 byte of the message length total. The total message length, what it can carry. Now what happened? Just go. This is, we are saying EAP message. And this is, we are saying EAP message 2. Now what is this message is? EAP request and response message have the same format. What do you mean? It means coming here. That this one and this one. Because as we discussed, these two have the data format, while these two, they don't have the data format, but we just received the number. 3, it means successful. 4, it means failure. Now see here, what are you saying? That the response message have the same format with either the code 1 or for the request and the code number 2 for response. So we just change the code. Either the code 1 is, it means that now this message is for request, and code 2 is, it means that this is for the response. So based on what? Based on, again, based on the same thing you see here. The number 1 is request and number 2 is response. So in the same way, you can see from here, that's what he is mentioning here. Now the EAP message 3, as we discussed, that 3 is success and 4 is failure. So EAP 3 success message are the EAP messages with the code 3, no data. There's no message body. But only if we have a 3, it means that it is success after, means fulfilling the first 2 messages, the first 2 steps. So it means it is success. A success message means that the authentication is what? Happened successfully. sorry for that. So if this is, means that it means that now it is successfully and connected. An EAP failure message are the EAP message with the code number 4 and no data also. So in number 3 message and number 4, there is no data. If number 3 is coming, it means successful. If number 2 is number 4 is there, then it means the failure. A failure message means that authentication has failed. We are not get successful. So EAP is not giving green signal. So then what happened? A02 will not give a green signal. We will not be able to get the connection now. Now authentication sequence. How this is happening? Very simple now. Now everything we understand. We will just rather to read this, we will just go to the authentication figures from where you can see it very clearly. So in authentication sequence, you can find out the authentication send a peer and identity request, which is optional. Peer sends the response. This is optional. Then authentication send a request with the type of according to which authentication method it wants to use, acknowledgement or not. So we just come directly here. It is more clear. So you see from here, this is the peer and this is the authenticator. So authenticator identify the request, then it identify the response, then EAP send the request, and then EAP response with the same type of the acknowledgement or non-acknowledgement. And this thing is happening. And in case if suppose any issue, so then what happened? This task is going to be repeat. So you can see from here, a mutual authentication is required and repeated as many times as it is required. So it's the same and simple that what we discussed it, how messaging services are going to be mechanism and how they are generically sending and receiving responses. Now this is all about the EAP. Now Radius, which is the remote authentication dial-in user service. That is the second part. We will discuss it in the next class. Still, even we have the time is also over. But even if suppose we had a time, but we will discuss in the next class as you can. Means just go through with the concept that what we discussed today and try to understand and just recap it quickly in the next class. Just go through once or twice to read them, and then we will start about the second part, which is the remote authentication user second class. Thank you very much for your attention or understanding this one. Now, if you have any question, please let me know. And if suppose you don't have a question, then we can go for the attendance. And for the attendance, I may request to our friends to stop the recording so we can go for attendance. If your question